and welcome to Catholic Answers Live. It's Wednesday, and we got a couple of great hours for you today. Darren did another fine job. Second hour, we're going to talk with Jeff Cavins about how to study the Bible. He's one of the editors of the brand new Bible with Commentary. How do we go about studying this massive library of books? Jeff Cavins will be here to help us with that. This hour, we talk about feasting, friendship, and culture. I have to say, in the modern world, one of the things we see diminishing is friendship, probably. Many people find it harder and harder to maintain a circle of friends, and our socializing is much different in the electronic age than it once was. But Catholic culture is culture of feasting, friendship, and well, beer, frankly. Beer is a very Catholic thing. Catholics have been making it since, probably almost since there's been Catholics. I'm not exactly sure. But the beer option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, yesterday and today, is the brand new book from Jared Stout, who is our guest this hour. Dr. Stout is also the director of Formation and Evangelization Formation for Catholic Schools and Evangelization for the Archdiocese of Denver. He teaches at the Augustine Institute and at St. John Vianney Seminary there in Denver. Dr. Stout, thanks for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, so we have discussed this before one time on Focus, but I love the title, The Beer Option, because I think all Catholic books now should end with the word option, since the Benedict option and the various other option books. But why the beer option? What are you getting at here?
Yeah, so I'm actually not proposing an option distinct from the Benedict option. I know there are all of these different options now,
right?
But Benedictines are the great brewers in the Catholic tradition,
right? And you are one of them, right? You're an oblate of St. Benedict.
I am at Our Lady of Clear Creek Abbey in Oklahoma. And so why is it that these monks, they're dedicated to prayer, they're going away from the world, and yet they're the best brewers in the world? Why is that? And I think it really teaches us something about Catholic culture fundamentally, seeking God first, and then from our prayer being able to do everything else well.
Yeah, and many of our brothers and sisters, Christian brothers and sisters who are not Catholic here in the United States, will be scandalized by that, frankly. Why have we come to see things like beer and wine and feasting and all that stuff that Catholics have traditionally loved? Or I think Chesterton threw in a good cigar. Why have we become so uncomfortable with those things?
It's really throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, beer and alcohol more generally is something that can be abused. And when you look at college campuses, for instance, people tell me, they're like, my experience of beer was getting drunk in college.
Oh,
well, yeah, that's a problem, But traditionally, when you look at the way that the monks integrated brewing into the monastic life, you look at the family beer gardens in Bavaria and Austria, you see that beer can and should be integrated into a robust Catholic culture.
Indeed, if you think about Bavaria and Austria, and even into the east there, in the more eastern Catholic countries, the beer is a fundamental part, really, of their life there, and this is for hundreds of years was really the heart of where the Catholic faith was practiced.
Yeah, definitely. And I have a whole chapter in the beer option just looking at the importance of location. The fact that, this is above the grape line, and so they're growing barley, they're growing hops, and it's just part of their diet, because until fairly recently, it was hard to get good drinking water. And so children were even drinking small beer. It was just part of the normal kind of staple of the diet. And also was an important part of just Catholic festivity, giving praise and thanks to God.
And that festivity was associated with, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but with especially in the high Middle Ages, a sense that life and the liturgical calendar were basically the same thing, that we lived the liturgical calendar throughout the year.
Yeah, you have the cycle of prayer fundamentally shaping Catholic culture. And where beer comes into that is people would get together on these big feast days to say thank you for the harvest, but also just to say life is good.
Yeah.
We were talking about how difficult it is to have friends, and I think it's because we're so isolated, and sometimes we think that life isn't good. But people were coming together to say thank you life is good, thank you, Lord, and to give him praise through their own friendship and community.
Uh, and also in the modern world, we have made a kind of idol, or maybe that's too strong a word, but I frankly don't think so, of efficiency and finding efficiencies and all that. And there's something that really pushes against humanity when it's all about efficiency and not about just celebrating and living.
And I think that's part of the reason why monks are the best brewers. They're not in a hurry, right?
Yes, right.
They don't need to be efficient. They can take their time and make the best beer that's available. But I would say we also see this in this new local microbrewing culture as well.
Yeah.
We don't have these massive breweries that are all about profit and efficiency, but making a good product with local ingredients to bring people together in the community.
Does that strike you as very a Catholic kind of thing? This closeness to the natural world that's all around you and doing things locally.
I think that beer is one way that we are rediscovering, Catholic culture. We have, probably about 5 different monasteries in the United States that have gone back to brewing, and it's gone along with this general renaissance of brewing culture in our country more generally. So yeah, I think it is to do things on the local level, subsidiarity, having a local economy and local community.
888-318-7884 is our guest, Dr. Jared Strout. That's our number. Dr. Jared Strout is our guest. Again, 888-318-7884. We're talking about Catholic culture, really, and the book, The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, is a kind of look at where beer falls in the history of the Catholic faith, and also how the Catholic faith is, in fact, itself a culture of eating and drinking and being merry. That's not all it is, but that's a big part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we can really see that beer is being used for evangelization in so many ways. Parishes, dioceses, even just local groups of Catholics getting together and talking about the faith over a beer.
Again, 888-318-7884. Okay, you must get some objections, though, that, the alcoholism runs in our family. How can you be promoting beer drinking, that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. I definitely, and I have a whole chapter in the book on the problem of alcoholism. And everything that we do, has to be in moderation. And some people use the image of even sexuality. Sexuality is so abused in our culture, and yet it is something obviously very beautiful, good, and central to human life. It's more important than beer, but it's the same idea. Yes, we can abuse alcohol, and a lot of time it's stronger liquor, which is abused. Beer traditionally has been a more moderate drink. Something that's part of our diet. You sit down, with a friend and have a couple of beers and talk, but alcoholism is definitely a problem that has to be addressed.
And beer is also one of those things that you can drink a pretty good amount of. Have yourself a nice stein of beer and you're not intoxicated.
Right. Just don't have a few of those big steins, but yeah.
So what in general is the Catholic teaching? What would say Thomas Aquinas, or one of the great medieval minds who probably had beer in their houses? What would they say to us about drunkenness?
Actually, Aquinas, he's always raising these objections, right? That's how he writes the Summa. And so he addresses the objection that alcohol should not be consumed. Mm-hmm. And he says, look, it's food. It's part of our diet. And so I have another chapter in the book that kind of looks at beer versus marijuana. And so unlike marijuana, right, it's made from natural substances which are meant to be consumed as part of our diet. And beer is meant to be consumed in moderation with a friend.
Yeah, and thanks a lot to you in Colorado for the marijuana craze. I believe you all, weren't you the leaders in that? Wasn't that?
I voted against it. That's all I want to say about that.
I wasn't asking you how you voted, but you would not vote against beer, but moderation is one of the hardest things for anybody to achieve. Whether it's an individual, a culture, a family, moderation is not an easy thing to come to.
Mm-hmm. And I think that there is a Catholic way of drinking. And so I even give some pointers in the book. You definitely have to know your limits, but I think, it's healthier not to drink alone, to drink with someone else, over a conversation, with food, probably during regular kinds of hours. You're not just staying up late and having a big drinking party or something like that.
Yeah, right. And well, let me give the number again, 888-318-7884. Actually, as I look at the clock, I'm enjoying talking about this, and I didn't look at the clock. Jared Stout is our guest. The book is The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, Yesterday and Today. We'll talk a little bit about modern brewing. We'll talk about some of that small brewing that's going, not some of it, it's everywhere. It's all over. In my town, we don't have any car repair anymore. We have no local stores. It's just breweries everywhere you go. You can get no other service in Oceanside, California, except breweries. So I suppose we're not really exercising moderation there. But we do have to take a break. We welcome your calls about brewing a Catholic culture. 888-318-7884, the number. I should remind you before we do go to that break, though, that we're doing Cyber Week. I guess everybody's doing Cyber Week now. We're beginning a limited time offer today from now until Sunday at midnight. If you use the promo code CALive18, what? I didn't even read this before. 35% off hundreds of items in our online store. Plus, we've got a $5 flat rate shipping in the continental U.S. Get some Christmas shopping done. Maybe find some great stuff for yourself. 35% off right now at shop.catholic.com if you use the promo code CALive18.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
I would describe myself as a revert, and ever since I came back to a practice of my faith, I started praying the rosary, going to even daily Mass. God has led me on an amazing journey and used me in a lot of incredible ways that I never dreamed would have been possible, and I'm just so grateful to God for all of His gifts and blessings in my life.
Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, tomorrow, noon Eastern on EWTN Radio.
It is time for feasting in America. There's that period. Halloween, I guess, gets it started, picks up steam at around Thanksgiving. We're still heading uphill, heading towards Christmas, when we will all have the delicious Christmas roast beef, or maybe it's not roast beef. No, what is the Christmas? Turkey, ham, roast beast, I guess. That's what Dr. Seuss says, roast beast. And even the New Year, and even on the first day of the New Year, celebrating a feast of Mary, our mother, and the Queen of Heaven. And so amidst all this feasting, we're talking to the man who has thought deeply about all this feasting that we Catholics advocate and enjoy as part of a balanced life, that it's not all Lent, I guess is one way to say it. And the book that Jared Stout has bequeathed to the world, The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, Yesterday and Today. Well, so you talked about a little bit about how beer was brewed in monasteries, but there's something interesting about ancient beer and the kind of beer that the Catholic Church developed. And really, if you enjoy beer today, you really should thank a Catholic monk, because they made it. Am I right?
Yeah, I have to say that you might not enjoy Mesopotamian or Egyptian beer as much. You know, they would actually bake these barley loaves and they'd soak them in these tubs, and the bread would disintegrate and you drink it with a straw. So the brewing practices that we know were invented and perfected by the monks of Western Europe.
Okay, so because sometimes we hear that the ancient Egyptians had these pots with beer in them that they can still go, but that's how it's not a real brewing. It's kind of just throwing it in a pot and letting it ferment. Is that what you?
Well, I'm not saying there wasn't an art to it, but yes, it was a different way of fermenting.
Okay, so how did the Catholics, the Catholic monks of Europe, come to be beermeisters?
Well, I mean, part of it was just that survival, that you needed a reliable drink, that wouldn't make you sick like so much water did. And
Oh
they
yeah.
were actually giving beer to all of the pilgrims that were coming, to the sick who were in the hospitals that they were starting, and they would drink it themselves also. So they were definitely putting it to good use, and they perfected it also by boiling, and that helped to kill any of those germs that were in there. And they were the first ones to use hops as a flavoring for beer as well.
Ah, so you like that nice hoppy taste. You're getting that also is from them. And this is probably, you gave us a little window there, but this idea of a traveler could come to a monastery and stay for a few days anywhere. It was like a hotel, that they had hospitals associated with these monasteries. As a matter of fact, it's really not possible to imagine the development of modern hospitals without the medieval diocesan and monastic hospitals. So this is all part of a way of life about taking care of people.
Right, and beer fit into that. So beer is not the center of Catholic culture by any means,
Yeah.
but it's really integrated into this hospitality, fellowship, and festivity.
And it's not so the disease thing too is, so you if you have because of the alcohol content, is that essentially what it is, that because it'll stay usable and drinkable and healthy?
Yeah, so it was the boiling process as the monks were producing the wort, right? So they're boiling that barley mash, and so the alcohol will help sustain it, and then the hops even help as well. So there's 3 elements to that.
Again, 888-318-7884, our number. We're talking about the beer option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, with Dr. Jared Stout. And shall we go to calls? Lots of folks want to talk to you about.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Ben in Ohio, listening on Sacred Heart Radio. You are up first today. Your question for Dr. Stout.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I wanted to hear more about the difference between beer drinking and marijuana use. I think I've been troubled by the prevalence of the legalization of marijuana use, but I've often had trouble coming up with a principled kind of argument against it. And just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the difference between those two things.
Yeah, so there's a few things I would say. One, I've already mentioned, coming from Aquinas, that barley and hops, these are things that are edible. Barley is just part of our diet in general. And so when you take barley and you brew it, you're actually making it more nutritious, so it's integrated into a healthy diet. And beer, in moderation, is something that is very healthy for you. There's a number of health benefits associated with moderate drinking of beer or wine, whereas more and more studies are really racking up showing the troubling health effects of marijuana, especially for the teenage and young adult brain, but even far beyond that. So I would say that, the fact that one is based on a food substance and promotes kind of this healthy culture, and of course, it can be consumed in moderation in a way that enhances conversation, enhances fellowship and festivity. Whereas what does marijuana do? It actually makes you more isolated. It takes you away from friendship. Who wants to hang out with a stoner, right? So I would say those are a few of the big distinguishing marks between beer and marijuana.
What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's helpful. Do you think? I guess one argument you hear people say a lot is like, "Well, it's natural, man. It's from the earth. It's good. God's good creation." I really don't know anything about the studies, so I just take your word for it on that. But do you think, is that a sufficient basis for a kind of a public argument against, say, the legalization of marijuana?
Yeah, and in the book, I live in Colorado, so I even go into some of the effects that we've seen in Colorado. Emergency room visits for kids, a spike in traffic accidents, effects in schools themselves. So there really are a number of troubling things that are already out there that you can study. Health studies, these other medical consequences and safety issues. So I think there is enough evidence there. And the fact that it's a natural substance doesn't mean that it's good for you, right? There's a lot of harmful natural substances, and barley is not one of them. Hops is not one of them.
Okay, Ben.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Snake venom is a naturally occurring substance.
That is very true.
As are shark's teeth and all kinds of things. 888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. Another thing is this, and maybe we touched on this a little bit, but I wonder if you would say more about it, because you have an actual chapter in here called Feasting, Fasting, and Friendship. And I suppose one of the things that we who are Catholic love about the Catholic faith is that it's intended to be practiced communally. It's not ever intended for someone to be alone, just me and Jesus even as wonderful as Jesus is. He did not call one disciple. He had 70 around him and the 12 apostles, and it's a sociable religion. And beer is sociable. Is that part of why you see it as Catholic?
Yeah, and obviously, it can be abused, right? And it can take you away from people. But when consumed properly, it is something that brings us together. Every now and then I'll do a beer fest, and I have to tell you that, one year when I did a beer fest, it was the loneliest year of my entire life, because people want to get together and have a drink, and it really does facilitate conversation and festivity.
So how do you balance that out with the fasting? If we've got the feasting and the fasting,
I think the church builds it in for us. We have Lent, and if you go back far enough, Lent was much more severe in its practices, that we wouldn't eat during the daytime at all. You wouldn't have any animal products, and actually wouldn't drink any alcohol. So I do think that Lent is a good time to abstain from alcohol. We're not required to do so, but maybe even Advent, as well, because when you pull back from these created goods, we realize that there's something more important. And Catholic culture has to be ordered towards God and His glory. And so the fasting actually gives us a better perspective on the feasting, because then when we come to that, we say these goods are a gift. We've already said no to them for a while, but now we're saying yes to them, to say yes to God and give Him thanks through them.
888-318-7884, the number. Nono in Illinois is up next. You have to excuse me, Dr. Stout. I have to ask Nono a question, because everyone asks me this question all the time. Nono, did you ever get the book? People always say it.
Not yet.
They say
we're still hoping.
Yeah,
we're still hoping, but not yet.
Because Nono's Dr. Stout, just in case you don't know, she lives in Illinois now, but she's from Nigeria, and we sent her a book to Nigeria, and it never got there. And if I'm out somewhere, people will go, "Hey, did Nono ever get her book?" And so I just, whenever you call Nono, I got to check in. Your question for Dr. Stout.
Hi, Sai. Hi, Dr. Stout.
Hi.
I have one question. Well, but then another thing was any comments you just said to the previous caller. So my question is, so theology on tap has become something that's very common now. And what would you recommend as a creative way of inviting people? But because I'm not trying to ambush them, hey, let's go hang out, and then we show up at the bar and it's theology with a whole bunch of church people. But I'm also not trying to bring up a topic that they may not be comfortable with talking about because of preconceived notions they may have of, say, the Catholic Church or religious people, or anytime they've brought up these religious conversations. So I'm trying to introduce them to a more comfortable environment, but I don't want it to be an ambush. So how would you recommend, reaching out in this way?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and I think it may actually start through what someone just told me recently on a beer retreat I was giving at St. Joseph's Farm in North Carolina for men. They said that I have a beer ministry. And by that, they mean I take a guy out to the bar, and over a beer, he said, we're able to talk about things we'd never be able to talk about otherwise, that they just wouldn't be comfortable talking about. So maybe before Theology on Tap, there's some beer ministry that's needed to set it up to really see, okay, how open is this person? Can I maybe even bring up that conversation on the topic that's going to be addressed at the next Theology on Tap, or waiting for the right topic to come up, at Theology on Tap? But I do think there's a reason why Theology on Tap and the Catholic Beer Club are both, expanding throughout the country so quickly. And it is because beer is this opening. to talk about the faith and even some of these difficult issues, that you mentioned, in a way that people are more comfortable with. So I think it is a big opening, but you're right. You might just want to feel people out, with their comfortability before inviting them to Theology on Tap.
And Nono, you said you had another question as well?
Yeah, the other thing came up when I was listening to your answer to the previous caller. So some young teen in my life that's very important to me has recently started trying out not necessarily alcohol or all of those things. Are you familiar with Juuls and these e-cigarette kind of things?
I'll tell you what, Nono, I hear the music. We have to take a hard break, so we'll get back to, you can explain to us what this young person is experimenting with and get Dr. Stout's view on that. The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture is the book. More of your questions for Dr. Stout right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new resources by Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Christopher Check, and other great Catholic teachers, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet, going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
Author Mark McNeil spent years in the Oneness Pentecostal movement, praying in its lively services, zealously spreading its unconventional teachings, and rejecting mainstream Christianity as misguided. Then he left it all behind. All in the Name is the story of a man who believed he was among an elite group of believers who followed the true faith when so many others had strayed. But an inquisitive mind, careful study, and the action of the Holy Spirit finally led Mark out of Oneness Pentecostalism and into the Catholic Church. This is an inspiring conversion story you won't want to miss. It's a faith strengthener for Catholics and an intriguing challenge to those who deny the doctrine of the Trinity. Order your copy of All in the Name today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic faith. We clear them up on Call to Communion, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Next hour, we're going to talk about how to study the Bible with the man who has devoted his life to helping people study the Bible, Jeff Cavins. This hour, we're talking with Dr. Jared Stout, who works for the, it's an Archdiocese of Denver?
Right.
Oh, I almost said diocese. Sorry, I didn't mean to demote you or your bishop. You direct formation for Catholic schools?
Yep, and for catechesis as well.
And fair enough. And also you teach at the Augustine Institute, which thrives year by year. We see it thriving and growing. And you also teach at St. John Vianney Seminary. Mm-hmm. Are those young men allowed to have a beer with dinner? Or you don't want to divulge?
So, yeah.
You don't know? Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Okay, that's fine. I shouldn't have. So we have on the line.
I actually teach lay people in the seminary, but...
Oh, you do?
I do, yeah.
Well, actually, everybody's a lay person in a seminary, right? Until they get ordained a deacon.
Okay, technically, yes, right.
I think I won that one. No, in Illinois, we were talking with you, but the music made it impossible for us to get what you were getting at. So would you try again with your question for Dr. Stout?
Definitely. Before I continue, Dr. Stout, I just heard Sai talk about all your credentials, and thank you for the amazing work you're doing with, spreading the faith and teaching people what is truth. So,
thank you.
Back to the question. it's this. They're e-cigarettes basically. I think they were basically developed to help people who are already addicted to smoking and cigarettes get off them, because they give you the nicotine but in smaller doses, and they have nice fruity flavors or something like that. But studies have shown that, and when they're being propagated, they're told they're a healthier option and all those kinds of things. But studies have shown that a lot of young people have started using these things. And what's worse is that they tend to be more addictive. So they have worse impact on people who don't already have addictions and start using them than the people who are using them to get out of the addiction. And I have a young friend who is a teenager and has a lot of friends who use them. And I know he's a very intelligent person and wouldn't consciously do anything to harm himself. But it's like with most other drugs, how do I communicate without being like I'm pushy or being that annoying older religious person?
Well, no. It's just because your phone is just coming in and out just a little bit. But it's about the question is about e-cigarettes, Dr. Stout, and their appeal to young people. They're more efficient, I suppose, at getting people addicted, even though they're not quite as dangerous apparently as cigarettes. So what does she say to a young person who she sees starting to use e-cigarettes?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, obviously, you don't have the brain-altering qualities in tobacco that you have in marijuana, but I would say health, in moderation is really the key here, that, once again, it does not promote health to be overusing and getting addicted, to tobacco products. And just over the break, we were talking about, what do we do with young people in general with helping them to form good habits, and, to kind of shift back into beer, but we can maybe use some of the same principles here, is that in Catholic cultures in Europe, there was always this tradition of having the family be the place where young people learned how to drink and how to, approach difficult things and to use them well. So I would say that it's really up to the parents, to be forming good habits in our kids. I think it's a mistake to just send our kids off to college without knowing, how to use alcohol, how to consume alcohol properly. So I think traditional Catholic culture wants to integrate, the good things of the earth, whether it's beer, food, whatever it is, into this, the relationships of family, relationship of friendship. So for beer, I would say for sure that should be our approach. But with tobacco, I think we should definitely have caution against addiction and minimizing any damaging health effects.
So in the thank you very, very much for that those questions, and it's nice to hear from you again. You're saying in this, and I'll go back to the Middle Ages if I could with you. The child can drink alcohol in the home with the parents, but it's the parents who will kind of teach how to use that so that it's not damaging to the kid.
Yeah, it becomes something normal. You're not trying to go off and be ridiculous by drinking all this beer with your friends as an act of rebellion. And so in Europe, you just don't see that as much because it's something integrated into the home. They've already learned how to drink properly. And it is legal, I believe, in most states to drink in the home with your own children. So it's not like you're breaking the law to do that.
It seems to me that I guess we learned a lesson here as an entire nation with prohibition and all that, but there's something about there's something appealing about more extremist ways of being Christian. I don't mean extremist like a terrorist or something, but to be more extreme, to say, well, if alcohol is dangerous, no alcohol, and to go to those. And so we see sects and groups that do all those things. But it's part of the wisdom of the Catholic Church to say, no, going to the extreme is not always the place to go to be more faithful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we really want to approach our drinking through virtue. We want to have the virtue of temperance. So it's not just with alcohol, but with all things. And we see this especially now even with social media and technology. Can you approach them with temperance and have balance in your life, and to prioritize prayer, to prioritize time with other people?
Again, 888-318-7884, the number. We're talking with Dr. Jared Stout about his fine new book, The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, Yesterday and Today. Let's go to Michael somewhere here in California. Michael, your question for Dr. Stout.
Yeah, I don't quite have a question, but Maria told her a story where it kind of changed for me as far as drinking and such.
Okay.
If I'd like to relate, okay?
Make it, just go.
This is back in Florida, in Jacksonville, right around the time of the shuttle explosion. God bless their souls. And I was in Jacksonville, and the city council had passed a no happy hour anymore. And a particular establishment I went to, the owner was just upset. And I said, "You kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, then change it to sad hour. Play some addicts. I can't get you for that." And he did. He was actually on the news the next day and said, "Well, come to us. We're having sad hour." And I had been touring, so I was kind of out there amongst everything and night and all and drinking. And right at that time, I found a crucifix that I wanted to wear. And I had been doing St. Francis of Assisi's prayer every morning when I woke up. And I noticed a change in my disposition. And so that night, I was looking around for a church, and there was a little Catholic church, Christ the King in the Woods, I believe was the name. And it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I knocked on the door, and a lady came to the rectory door, and I said, "Excuse me, is the father in?" And she says, "Yes, hold on just a minute." And I watched her go in and tell him in his dining room I could see through a mirror, and he stopped what he was eating and came out to me, and you could see the concern. He goes, "What's the problem?" I said, "Are you okay?" He was Irish. And I said, "Yes, Father." I said, I finally found a crucifix I wanted to wear, and I was wondering if I could get you to bless it. And he said, "Sure, I'd be happy to. Come on in my office." So I go in, and I tell him, he said, "Well, let me see the crucifix." And he blesses it. And he said, "So what else is on your mind? What's the problem?" And I said, "Well, I don't really have any problems. I've been trained." So, come on, there's something there. And I said, "Well, I got kind of mad at somebody the other day because they said, 'Oh, you had a woman in every port.' And I got mad, and then I started thinking about it, and I went, 'Ooh, pretty close.' And I wasn't feeling good about that."
Michael,
says, "Well,
you're going to have to let us know what the priest did or said that impressed you.
Oh, okay. I'll just jump it to the end. Basically, he said, if you're going to walk with the cross, chivalry's right up front. And I asked about the drinking, and he says, drink in moderation. He says, a lot of them here that change that. You'll watch them run into the closet and take a nip out of the bottle. He said, but the thing is this, that changed my ways, is he said, you might go out and you might get drunk and do something stupid, and you wake up the next day and you live to regret it the rest of your life. So he just said everything in moderation.
Well, well, thank you, Michael. I'm glad to hear that it was an Irish priest who said that, because we have the stereotype, perhaps, of the Irish priest who struggles with moderation himself. But what do you make of that, Dr. Stout?
Yeah, I think that it is a struggle, not only with alcohol, but as I was saying before, we have to build virtue. We have to direct and order our lives and everything that we do to God. And if we're not doing that with alcohol, it may be something that we do need to cut out of our lives, if we can't order it properly. So, yeah, we definitely have to approach alcohol in moderation. And if we don't, it becomes this escape. It maybe becomes a little bit more like marijuana, where we're using it to get away from our problems rather than using it to engage with others and to make a positive contribution, with our family, friends, and community.
Dr. Stout is our guest, Dr. Jared Stout. The book, The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture, Yesterday and Today. We've got to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more of your questions for Dr. Stout right after this.
Catch Catholic Answers live anytime at Catholic.com.
Pope Francis reminds us that it does not take a specialized degree in theology to become a great evangelist. We're all called to evangelize. Think about the woman at the well. After she encountered Jesus, she immediately went into the city and invited others to meet him as she had. You and I can go out now and do the same. And St. Paul Street Evangelization can help. Get involved today by contacting us at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN, helping people grow in their love and understanding of God.
In that regard, retreat absolutely lit me on fire. Your talks and the spiritual counseling, I just want to learn so much about it. And as a parent of 3 boys, what can I research to continue that fire, to impart that on my boys?
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Hey, welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Just sent out our radio club letter for to kind of encourage you at the start of Advent. And we'll be doing some more of those throughout Advent. So I encourage you to join Radio Club, become a member by going to CatholicAnswersLive.com. Just scroll down to the bottom of the page and join Radio Club. You just put your email address in. We give you free stuff. That's how it works. We send you a letter with what we think is some of the best stuff of the week. And when there are free MP3s or maybe an ebook available, we also send them to you. We'd love to have you as a member of Radio Club. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com, scroll down to the bottom, and it says sign up for our weekly newsletter right under the words Radio Club. You put your email address in, and you are a member. Dr. Jared Stout, our guest this hour. The book, The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture Yesterday and Today. And we start out this segment with Michael in Virginia listening on the Catholic Answers app. Michael, thanks for downloading the app onto your phone. Your question, please.
Yes, I had just a couple of things I was wondering if Dr. Stout could comment on. One that I heard that hops are good for the prostate. And then the other one was, and I'll just get off after, better that it's possibly, have you ever heard anything that's better for reflux? Because my personal experience was when I switched from having a glass of wine before bed to a glass of beer, my reflux went away. So it just, if you could comment on those things, whether you have any comments on that.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things, mentioning the prostate is that St. Hildegard of Bingen, a medieval Benedictine abbess, wrote a couple of books just on the natural healing properties of different substances, and she talked about beer and hops both in her books. And I think anyone who drinks beer knows this, but she said, yes, beer is very good for promoting urination. So I think that's the closest that St. Hildegard got, but I think that's the issue she's getting at, not just that when you drink something, it makes you to urinate. But she means if you're having problems, in that area, that she thought it had a healing quality. So that's the closest thing that I've heard. But I have read a number of modern scientific studies saying that beer in general is good for the kidneys. It's also good with diabetes, for bone strength, and also for your heart. In terms of the glass of wine and reflux, I mean, I've just found that even drinking different beers or beer versus wine, that it can have a different impact on me based on which beer it is or versus someone else. So that may just be a personal thing. I haven't heard anything in particular about beer and reflux.
Thank you very, very much for that call, Michael. Do you have a sense with all, like I was kidding about my town, but it really seems like we have a brewery on practically every corner now in my town. Do you think that's because people have just come to love beer so much, or because there's something in us that wants that pub experience? Which do you think is drawing people to that?
I think there's a few things at work there. I mean, home brewing and microbrewing was actually illegal until 1979. It was like this holdover from Prohibition. And we had 40 breweries in the United States.
Yeah.
Now we're up to 4,000. And why? I think because people enjoy the great variety we had. There was only like a few types of beer, back in 1979. Now we have dozens and dozens, and people enjoy tasting the different ones, the local beers that the brewer around the corner can dream up, and having that place to go. Like you said, walking around the corner, sitting down with some people when you get out of work, or meeting up with people after dinner. I do think that the local community has a big part in this blossoming of these local breweries.
Yeah. So how many is too many? We have 4,000 now. What do you think is the 10,000, a million? I think 3,000 of them are in my town, but I'm not sure.
We might be getting close to saturation because I know it is hard just to be successful as a microbrewer right now because there is a lot of competition. So I think the market just may have a correction there.
Let us go then to Chad in Ohio, listening on Redeemer Radio. Chad, you are on with Dr. Jared Stout. Your question, please.
Yes, I was curious about the hops and the cannabis relationship and the food quality between the two. I know that there's a lot of medicinal value and scientific research on the adult brain having positive effects with it, also cancer to OCD. And I have a friend with MS who actually was getting more function in his muscles from this plant. And he got busted growing it. In 2 years, I seen him almost die in front of me. And then they got legal in Ohio. They could use it again, and his condition is just turning around, and it's amazing. So I don't know if you guys speak of ignorance or out of something that you thought was right and actually were taught wrong, but in moderation and not, raising the temperature of the THC to make the psychedelic qualities is a thing you do with the natural plant form. And I was wondering what you thought with the hops versus the cannabis in that relationship of consumption.
Yes, so I think what you're hinting at there is that hops and cannabis are distantly related. They're in the same family of plants. So hops doesn't have, those psychedelic qualities, so they're not that closely related. But yes, I mean, the problem with, smoking marijuana, is getting high. And it's the same problem with drunkenness, right? So if you're using any kind of drugs to get high, it's this escape from reason. And we don't want to do anything to damage our reason. That is what makes us who we are as intelligent, rational beings. And so virtue is meant to enhance our rationality in the truth, and vice takes us away from the truth and the good of reason. So that's the kind of distinction that I think we want to have there. And if we're able to truly have, medicine that is based on the cannabis plant, that the THC is minimized, and you're not just doing it to get high, because I think medical marijuana has been abused a lot, then there's not anything intrinsically wrong with the cannabis plant.
But it's also true that there's anecdotal evidence and then there's more studied evidence. And we do hear a lot of anecdotal evidence, but we're slow in developing studied evidence about the health effects of marijuana.
Yeah, and I think that there have been more studies coming showing the ways that it can be positive, and also showing, a lot of negative effects, I think, with recreational use.
Chad, thank you very, very much for your call. We're talking about the beer option, brewing a Catholic culture yesterday and today with Dr. Jared Stout. We go now to Mike in Washington, D.C., listening to EWTN on Sirius XM Satellite Radio, Channel 130. Mike, you are on with Dr. Stout. Your question.
Hey, good afternoon. Hey, when you were mentioning about how different monasteries brew beer, I was wondering, do you know if there's any parishes that actually have a brewing ministry where, people kind of get together to brew beer, and then they use the beer and maybe some of their other activities, like a theology on tap or anything?
Absolutely. Yes, I do. And I even know a couple of local places, and I've been a part of what they've been doing. So Holy Name of Jesus Parish here in Denver is one example that they do get together and brew. I was part of one of their brewing nights, and then they use the beer at different occasions, and they have an annual Oktoberfest, where they bring out their own beer. I actually gave a talk at the parish just a few weeks ago, and I was able to bring in the beer at the end of my talk. I was talking about, the importance of land in our faith and evangelization, and then I was able to make that connection to the beer option and land at the end. So we also, there's two gentlemen in Lakewood, just right next to Denver, who began brewing for their parish, Our Lady of Fatima. And they've actually, from just brewing for charitable purposes for the Knights of Columbus in their parish, have actually spun out and now have their own brewing company in Denver. But they still, definitely want to be brewing for church events. So those are just a couple of examples, but I've definitely heard of others as well.
What do you make of that, Mike?
Okay, great. So it's Our Lady of Fatima. It would be interesting to start one at my church, and to see who I could get in touch with to see how they do it.
Are you a brewer? Have you brewed, Mike?
Yeah, I brewed in the past, and I don't do it quite as much. But I think if I had maybe some other folks who did it as well and combined it more with kind of a fellowship, I think that would be, probably get me back into the swing of things.
Yeah. So, in your experience, do you share Dr. Stout's view of the sociability of beer? That it's a more maybe than some of the other things that we might do. It's just a very sociable thing.
I've done it with, I've brewed beer with my kids before just to show them how it all works and everything. And, it's a great group activity to do. I mean, and a lot of brewers kind of trade secrets and things like that. And there's a big online, and the thing is, a lot of these parishes have kitchens as well. And it's just I think it'd be a great way to get people together.
Yeah, I agree. And sorry.
No, go ahead, Dr. Stout.
Yeah, and I got my kids involved in home brewing as well, and I think it's fun just to be able to do something together. And I have a whole chapter in the book on home brewing as one way of revitalizing this home economics. The word economics even means the law of the household, and I think that was something that really kept families together, that they had common projects and ends they were working on together. And home brewing is just one way I think we could come back to that.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks very, very much. Have you? Do you have a sense, Dr. Stout? I am somewhat loath to ask this question, you being a great aficionado of beer, but is there such a thing as bad beer? Or is that all? Is it entirely a matter of taste?
Well, I think whenever you're judging something, whatever it is, you say, what is the form of that thing? And usually we say, with beer, right? It's made of water, barley, hops, and yeast. And so it's great to see how the connection, of these things comes together to make something beautiful, and delicious. So I would say a bad beer is something that just doesn't achieve that form, of what a beer should be. Now, there could be some debate on that, I suppose. But I would say that a lot of people don't really know the full scope of the taste and flavoring of beer. A lot of people, just start with like a light beer and they say, oh, that's what beer is, and then they stop. But, I've done beer tastings for people with the Belgian Trappist beers, and they're blown away. They're like, I never knew that beer could taste that way. And so I think that there is this, aesthetic quality of beer that we can really fine-tune our palate, and we can really get into some of the more complex, flavors that beer has to offer. And so some beers are more exciting and more complex than others.
It's interesting, though, that's also a very Catholic thing. There's a standard, an objective standard of beauty. Even if we can't always know exactly what it is, there is an objective standard. It's not all just subjective.
Yeah, that's definitely right. Aquinas, I think, was able to see it from both perspectives, to say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, that I have to tune myself to the reality of things and to be able to appreciate it subjectively.
Yeah.
But what am I looking for? I'm looking for something beautiful in the thing. Is it, proportional? Does it have this kind of clarity and radiance of being? And so in a kind of blasé culture, I think beer can, spice things up and, bring some beauty into our lives and help us to appreciate something that's delicious.
I am impressed and not shocked, but I had not heard of a beer retreat before. So this is a new thing to me. What about a beer pilgrimage? Have you thought of going over and going to the great beer places of the Catholic world?
Not only have I thought about it, I just did it.
So
good. At the end of October, I led a pilgrimage through northern France. We started in Paris, and we saw, the churches and the art, visited the saints, but then we also went out and visited some brewing monasteries. So Saint Vendry Abbey in northern France, it's the only abbey in France that does their own brewing in-house. And then we did go to some of the great, Trappist breweries in Belgium. And so I really wanted it to be a holistic experience of Catholic culture. So the beer, yes, but also the holiness of the saints, the art, and just the beauty.
And any more pilgrimages coming up?
Yeah, so I'm doing one to Ireland, September 14th to 23rd. We will be going to the Guinness Brewery, but it's mostly not focused on beer. But if you want more information on that, it's rtijourneys.com.
rtijourneys.com. The book, it would make an excellent Christmas present for the beer drinker in your family. The Beer Option, Brewing a Catholic Culture Yesterday and Today by Dr. Jared Stout. Dr. Stout, thank you so much for a very fine hour.
Thank you for having me.
And enjoy the feasting around Christmas and the New Year.
I intend to.
How to Study the Bible next. Jeff Cavins will be here with us. We're going to talk about how you, yes, you, can be a studier, a student of that great library, God's Word, the Bible. We'll be right back with that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Bishop James Wall from the Diocese of Gallup, New Mexico. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Advent is upon us and Christmas approaches. Catholic Answers wants you to know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter the promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new products on doctrine, church history, morality, apologetics, and much more, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com today to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout and save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
What was once a quirky offshoot on the media landscape is now one of the hottest things going. With downloadable podcasts of Catholic Answers Live and Catholic Answers Focus being available for quite a few years now, we're proud to say we saw it coming. And now our podcast lineup is expanding with Clumsy Theosis, the perfect show for young people trying to get closer to God, and apologist Trent Horn's The Council of Trent, with each episode giving you a conversation roadmap so you can share your faith with anyone, anytime, with charity and respect. Venture on over to Catholic.com today and take a look at the radio page where you can download and listen to past podcasts and subscribe to future shows. Don't miss a thing. Visit Catholic.com today and subscribe.
Is the church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Are you looking for an on-fire Catholic speaker to come and speak at your conference or parish event? If so, you're in luck. We've got a host of Catholic Answers speakers, including myself, just waiting to get on a plane and come see you. Just go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com to get all the information you need to make your event the talk of the town. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
As Catholics, we hear expressions like dogma, doctrine, deposit of faith, and of course, magisterium. And adding to the confusion, we have the ordinary magisterium and the extraordinary magisterium. So what if you were looking for one book written for the layman that explained what all these terms mean and how they interact in the lives of the church and her faithful? The fact is, no such book existed until now. Brand new from Catholic Answers Press is Jimmy Jimmy Akin's latest book, Teaching with Authority. Teaching with Authority is not about specific church teachings, it's about church teaching itself. A unique and long overdue resource for Catholics as well as those inquiring about the faith, Teaching with Authority will help deepen your understanding of what the church teaches by showing you how, why, and where she does. Get your copy of Teaching with Authority today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging onto the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Hello and welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. And now that we have talked about beer, we are all ready to talk about the Bible. I actually don't know if beer appears in the Bible anywhere, but they certainly had it in the ancient world. I cannot remember. I will have to ask Jeff Cavins that, because we talked this hour about how to study the Bible with the man who has done a great deal to help others come to the Bible and study the Bible, particularly through his work with Ascension Press. He did a study program called The Bible Timeline, The Story of Salvation. That work has enabled students to understand the chronological flow of Scripture, because when you open up the Bible, it starts at the beginning. You know that because it says in the beginning. But it doesn't necessarily always, well, it doesn't in fact always flow in a straight line from there to its conclusion in the book of Revelation. It takes some getting accustomed to and knowing where you are in the Bible. And this is Jeff Cavins' great contribution. Over 6,000 groups have used the studies. I think it's maybe closer to 10,000 groups now across the U.S. and other countries. They've helped hundreds of thousands of Catholics and other Christians engage Scripture in really a life-changing way. And so we will talk with Jeff Cavins. Now, having said all of that, the Great Adventure Bible is a journey through the Bible that it's an actual, I'm holding it in my hand now, it is the Holy Bible. And Jeff Cavins provides you a great deal of help then working your way through the Bible. So it's a very special addition from a very, very capable, I suppose, tour guide to give you the tour through the Bible. Jeff Cavins, thanks so much for being with us.
Hey, good to be with you.
So first of all, maybe tell us the story of how did I end up with this in my hand, what is called the Great Adventure Bible. How did I end up with this? What was the process?
Good question. Well, you know, the short version of that is that years ago, about 20 years ago, I was committed to studying the Bible and trying to give the Bible to people in a way that they could understand it as a basic story, you know, as a narrative. And we landed on that in 1993, and then we ended up about 2 years later at Franciscan University, and Dr. Scott Hahn and I ended up publishing this, you know, nationwide with EWTN, and we ended up telling people about the amazing story of salvation history from the perspective of all 73 books.
This is one of the difficulties of the Bible. You open the Bible and you work your way through it. You can get lost. You can think, where am I? Where am I in time? You know, even say you read the stories of King David. Well, how does this relate to the rest of world history? At what moment am I now?
Right. Well, if you're studying the Bible, you know, from the New Testament all the way through the Old Testament, what we want to do is we want to show you history, real world history, in light of salvation history, and that is the Bible. And in the new Great Adventure Bible, we show you that so that you don't know, you know, you're not lost. You're not in a place where you don't know where you're at. So that's what we want to do, is we want you to know that God has a plan and there is a story in light of that plan, and that story will give you, the plan for your life.
888-318-7884 is our number if you'd like to talk with Jeff about this Bible or about the whole story of salvation history, particularly if you have questions about how to study it. Maybe you have that Bible at home and you're thinking, I've thought about cracking it, but when I open up, I hit the book of Numbers, and I don't know what's going on in the book of Numbers. Well,
or Leviticus.
What did you say? Or Leviticus? Yeah, exactly.
Leviticus.
Yeah, that is our topic this hour, and your call is welcome. 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884. So, is the Bible a book? Then, is it fair to call it a book?
You know what? I think when you look at the Bible, you need to look at it as a library. And there's a number of books, 73 books in the entire library. And most people start in Genesis, and then they want to go all the way to Revelation. But they start in Genesis, and they go to Leviticus. And by the time they do that, if they say, I'm going to start in January, right around March, they quit because they've lost the narrative.
Just in time for Easter.
The Great Adventure. Yeah, exactly. And what the Great Adventure Bible does is that it shows them how to read it as a narrative, as a complete story.
And so you've been doing this for more than 20 years, and 25 years then. And what have you learned about, I imagine a great deal has been learned along the way about how to help people crack open these ancient texts. What can you tell us of note that you've learned? Oh, this is something that only doing it, actually being in contact with people and helping them do it could have taught me this lesson.
Well, I think that's a good question. I think number one is that there is a story in the Bible. Mm-hmm. And most people that try to read it go from Genesis all the way to Revelation, and they can't get it. And so there is a story, and we want to show them how to do that. We want to show them how to follow that story from Genesis all the way to Revelation. The key point that I would say is that, paragraph 236 of the Catechism says that we need to know two things. One is the theology of God, which is the mystery of the Father, the mystery of the Trinity, to know the Father's heart. The second is the economy of God, and that is to know his plan. And if we can show people the plan of God, salvation history, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, they're going to know the heart of the Father. They're going to know the plan of the Father. And if they know those two things, they're going to know really a foundation for trusting God. And that is what people are really struggling with today is, can I trust God in my life today? And the answer is absolutely yes, you can.
We do hear the Bible dismissed, especially by atheists and agnostics of a particularly, maybe, I don't know if militant is the word, stripe, as a Bronze Age document. Why would I get my morals? Why would I bother with this Bronze Age document? Now, they're having a little trouble with their history there because it's not primarily a Bronze Age document.
Right.
But the point remains, even if they don't know when the Bronze Age happened or when the Bible happened, then the point remains, this is very old stuff. Why should I take my life clues from that?
Well, I think you bring up a really good point, and that is, if the most important event for us as Catholics was 2,000 years ago, how do we make it relevant for today? And the only way that we can really make it relevant for today is to live the truth of the death, burial, resurrection of Jesus, and to become disciples of Christ. In other words, we become Jesus. We pick up his will. We pick up his adventure and what he wants us to do. And that's what we're called to do. And if we don't do that, then we don't have anything to say in the culture today.
Fair enough. Again, 888-318-7884, the number. How to study the Bible is our topic this hour, and you'll probably want to get online somewhat quickly because the Bible usually brings out lots of calls, and we'd like to get to as many questions as we can. So 888-318-7884. Jeff Cavins is our guest. We're talking about his new and fine work in collaboration with a great many other people from Ascension Press, The Great Adventure, a Bible, Your Journey Through the Bible. I have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more after this.
This is Bishop Chad Zielinski from the Diocese of Fairbanks of Northern Alaska, and you are listening to Catholic Answers Live.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Every single day, I get to help our listeners of the Sunrise Morning Show wake up, find out what's going on in the church and the world, and then walk with them as we all seek to grow in knowledge and love of Jesus Christ and the Catholic faith. I mean, how could it get any better?
The Sunrise Morning Show with Anna Mitchell and Matt Swaim. Tomorrow morning, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Christmas is coming, and with Advent already upon us, we want to make sure you know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout. With great new resources by Jimmy Akin, Trent Horn, Christopher Check, and other great Catholic teachers, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com right now to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet, going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALIVE18 at checkout to save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
Hey, if you like what you hear on Catholic Answers Live, we'd like you to share it with other people, and you can do that in your parish with the permission of your pastor, or you can just do it in your family group or your school or wherever, and we call folks who do that parish partners, and the person who's in charge of the parish partner program here at Catholic Answers is assistant producer Marie, who joins me now. Do you need parish partners right now?
Yeah, we always need parish partners. We want to reach as many people as we can in all of the parishes. We only send supplies to people in the United States, so to my international people, you can send me an email at radio@catholic.com, and I can send you the flyers. But the way that you can go sign up if you are in the United States and you want to spread the word is go to catholicanswerslive.com and enter in a couple things there. I just received new supplies, which is really exciting. We were out for a while, so if you applied to be a parish partner over the last several weeks and you haven't heard anything from me and you haven't received anything, you will in the next couple weeks. So
if you go to CatholicAnswersLive.com and you press the button that says Become a Partner, then you can get all the information. Would we send them like window clings?
We're doing stickers now. You'll get
bumper
some
stickers.
Actually, they're like regular stickers. So all the rage, if you don't know, is that with teenagers, they put stickers on their water bottles, and I do it too, just to try to jump on the young people train.
Oh, you mean these permanent water bottles that people, not the little plastic water bottles.
The permanent ones.
And then you could just be sharing Catholic Answers Live wherever you go.
And you'll get flyers and cards for our different podcasts and things like that. So it's really great stuff, and you can put it out in the back of your parish with the permission of your pastor, as I said.
Especially if you live in an area where Catholic Answers Live is not available through radio. I mean, anybody, if you share it, we're happy. But in some spots, it's not on the local radio station. It's not on any local radio station, and people have to find us via the internet or the apps or EWTN satellite. So if you can share the good news about what we're doing here at Catholic Answers, we'd love it. Go to CatholicAnswersLive.com.
And become a parish partner.
Thanks, Assistant Producer Marie.
Thank you.
Have you recovered from Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Okay, good. Jeff Cavins is our guest this hour. We're talking about the Great Adventure Bible from Ascension Press. If you order it now, you can probably get it as a Christmas gift. And I would say this is a magnificent Christmas gift for anyone who, has maybe wanted to, I really want to crack open that Bible. I really want to understand what's in there. This is like getting the key to the Bible. And so I highly recommend it to you. Jeff, we have folks on the line who want to talk with you about the Bible. Shall we take calls about how to study the Bible?
Super.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's start with Nathan in Texas, listening on the EWTN app. Nathan, happy to have you here with us. Your question for Jeff Cavins.
Hey, Cy and Jeff, how are you doing tonight, guys?
Really good, Nathan.
Good. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very good. And, I just have a question for you, Jeff. A friend of mine who, hasn't really been brought up in the faith. I'm a cradle Catholic myself. She owns the New American Bible, which is what I have. And she also has a catechism of the Catholic Church, which is good. And even wanting to start studying about the church, which is great. And I've been listening to Catholic Answers Live and everything. And, she did tell me that she has a hard time understanding, the Old Testament and also sometimes what Jesus says in the New Testament. Now, just to kind of put this in perspective, whenever she reads the Bible, I also gave her, so she can better understand, she actually gets the reflections from Word on Fire from Bishop Robert Barron.
Wonderful.
And so she tells me when she can't understand it, she reads the reflections, and he really puts it in perspective for her. But then there's times where she still doesn't understand. So just kind of sort of, I've been doing apologetics because of, Trent Horn, and there's times where I can't really explain it. So how do I approach this with this soul? I mean, it's a beautiful thing, but
okay, let's let Jeff answer, because you have actually hit on the one thing he's devoted his life to.
That's an excellent question. When you look at the Old Testament and you see the plan of God as it's laid out from Genesis all the way to Malachi in the Old Testament, one of the things that you have to be aware of is something that Pope Benedict brought out in his Jesus series. He had 3 books on Jesus, and he talked about recapitulation, and that is that Jesus is going to relive all of the stories of the Old Testament. And if you want to study the New Testament, you have to be aware of the Old Testament. And when you study the New Testament, you start to see that Jesus literally relives all the stories of the Old Testament, and he makes them complete, if you will. And in Matthew chapter 3 and Matthew chapter 4, John the Baptist said, that I shouldn't be doing this. You should be baptizing me. And Jesus said, no, we must do this to complete, all righteousness. And that's what Jesus did. And that's the key to understanding the New Testament, is that Jesus is going to complete everything, absolutely everything in the Old Testament.
Nathan?
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and I really appreciate it, Jeff. And it's just, do you have any maybe references besides the Bible you were speaking about today? Do you have any references or anything I could give her to be like, hey, and the Catechism of the Catholic Church, she has trouble understanding it as well. So, do you have anything that you can maybe give me, or maybe an email, emails, or maybe a reference online?
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah, no, there's a couple things. Number one is if you get a hold of Pope Benedict's Jesus series, there are 3 books on the life of Jesus, you're going to see some remarkable insights. that he has from the Old Testament to the New Testament. The other thing is the new Great Adventure Bible, which we just published, is featuring the scholarship of Dr. Mary Healy from Detroit, from Sacred Heart, and Dr. Peter Williamson, and Dr. Andrew Swafford over in Atchison, Kansas. And they do just a tremendous job of bringing out the relationship between the Old and the New Testament. I got to tell you, a lot of people have asked me, how do I get to know Jesus? How do I know him really? And my answer is always the same, and that is, if you want to know Jesus, then you need to know the Old Testament, and you need to know it really, really well, because that's what he's focused on, and that's what he's reliving. And as Pope Benedict said, this is the recapitulation. This is what he's totally focused on.
Nathan, thanks so much for that call. And please have your friend call here anytime. We do open forum on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We love to talk with people who are, we talk to some of the most knowledgeable people about the faith, and we talk to people who are just baffled by it because they're brand new to it. So we're happy to take her call anytime. I hope she will. Thank you for your call. Let's go to Teresa in Bismarck, North Dakota. Teresa, your question for Jeff Cavins.
Yes, I'd like to know the print size and the cost.
For the Great Adventure Bible.
The Bible.
Oh, good question. When we put together the Great Adventure Bible, there was a number of things that we considered. Number one was we wanted a Bible that people could live in. And in order for people to live in a Bible, they have to have margins, to write in, make notes in. And so we took the margins of the average Bible in the Catholic world, and then we doubled it. And so the margins are double what most people are used to as far as writing, in their Bible. The other thing is that we made a red letter edition. That means that all the words of Jesus are in red letters, and that there's a great advantage to that. As far as reading, as far as teaching, that you can open up the Bible and you can immediately see that this is what Jesus said. Okay, and we also looked at a Bible where we had a really good binding. It would last a long time, and we're encouraging people to be in the Bible and to write in the Bible and to make notes for not 5 years, not 10 years, but 20, 30 years, in a relationship with the Lord. And I think we really struck that, when we created this Bible.
Does that help you?
So the print is real small.
No, it's not small. Let me just clarify that. We took the average print and we upped it, or in the words of McDonald's, we biggie sized it, a whole size, so that people would feel comfortable with that text.
It really is a beautiful. It just feels wonderful to hold in your hand. It's a beautiful piece.
Especially the cover.
What's that? The cover, yeah, especially because it's so right. It feels so solid. Like you feel like you're going to hand it on to your grandkids. I noticed that at Ascension Press, it's selling for $59.95. It is not a large print Bible. Like there are some books that are made especially for those who need large print in order to read. It's big print. Right. It's much bigger than you'll find in a normal, your regular Bible. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's for the vision impaired.
No. In fact, what we hear from most people is that they're saying that this is really comfortable, and they really like that. The size of the font that we chose, as far as the older people being able to read it.
Teresa, thank you for your call. Our number 888-318-7884. We're talking about how to study the Bible with a man who has done a great deal to help Catholics. Oh, what I was going to say, I meant to ask you this, Jeff. This is the Bible text that you use is the Catholic Edition's Revised Standard version. Is that correct?
Number 2.
But would you say this is like, for example, a Protestant person says, I want to do that. I want to go through the Bible and have help, where am I? What is this about? How does this fit? Would you recommend it to them as well?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when you look at the Revised Standard Version, as far as Protestants are concerned, you know, there's only about, I would say, maybe 25 changes in the Catholic edition. So what we have to offer is what the Catechism offers. And as far as Protestants are concerned, if they picked up this Bible, they wouldn't even know really, obvious, you know, that it was a Catholic Bible. So I think it's a great choice.
Okay, fair enough. There's only, as you said, 25 differences. They would know it's Catholic Bible because it does say Second Catholic Edition on the title page.
Yeah,
but I understand what you mean. The text is not going to be. It's not a recruiting text. It's supposed to help you.
As far as what they are concerned with, they're not going to know as much.
Fair enough. Let's go to Michael in Cincinnati, listening on the Sacred Heart Radio app. Wonderful, Michael. Happy to have you with us. Your question for Jeff Cavins.
Yes, it's a privilege to speak with you, Jeff. Love using your series with teenagers. But I was presented with a Hebrew scholar who said that we Catholics as well as Gentile Christians think in a Greek and a Latin way, and that the Jews think in a Hebrew way. Now, they're meant to be complementary, but we've been real dominant for 2,000 years in a Greek and Latin way of thinking, and that with this resurrection of the Messianic Jews, that there's this new focus on what they say the Hebrew way of thinking is on function versus form, which is the predominant Gentile or Greek way of thinking. What would you have to say about that way of, seeing the Bible?
Well, I think you do bring up a good point, and that is that the Hebraic
Jeff, I'm sorry, I done you wrong. We have the break, so we'll have to wait for the answer on the other side. Can you hang around, Michael, for a few minutes? Okay, we will be right back with more How to Study the Bible with Jeff Cavins on Catholic Answers Live right after this.
Hello, this is Bishop Jeffrey Monforton, Bishop of the Diocese of Steubenville. Make sure you keep it on Catholic Answers Live. God bless you.
Advent is upon us and Christmas approaches. Catholic Answers wants you to know about our annual Christmas sale with hundreds of great faith-building resources all on sale at 20% off when you enter the promo code CALive18 at checkout. With great new products on doctrine, church history, morality, apologetics, and much more, there's simply no better time to stock up on resources to build up your faith and the faith of those around you. Phone 888-291-8000 or go to shop.catholic.com today to take advantage of what is truly the best Catholic sale on the internet going on now through the end of the year. And remember, enter promo code CALive18 at checkout and save 20% on hundreds of great resources throughout the store.
With the recent commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the release of Humani Vitae, there have been fresh attacks on Catholic teaching from outside and, unfortunately, inside the Church. That's why Catholic Answers thought it critical to provide a vigorous affirmation of Pope Paul VI's prophetic wisdom with our newest book, Inseparable: 5 Perspectives on Sex, Life, and Love in Defense of Humani Vitae. We asked 5 distinguished contributors to reflect on and defend Humani Vitae from 5 perspectives, each of them compelling, together forming a mosaic of truth. Don't be caught uninformed when the topic comes up among friends, family, and coworkers. Order your copy of Inseparable today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or by visiting the shop at Catholic.com.
Hi, this is Dr. David Anders. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Catholic faith. We clear them up on Call to Communion, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Had to wait to get an answer to Michael's question. Michael called from Cincinnati, listening on the Sacred Heart app, and the question is about thinking in a Greek and Latin way and thinking in a Hebrew way. And I had to jump in like a skittish cat to interrupt the conversation there, Jeff. I'm sorry, because I got surprised by the music. But your response to Michael's question.
Sure. You know, there is a difference between a Greek approach, a Greek approach to Scripture and a Hebrew approach, to Scripture and life. The Greek approach is that we study to understand, and the Hebrew approach is that we study to revere. In other words, we want to worship God. And from the Hebrew approach, you can study Scripture, you can study the faith on your knees, and that is considered worship. And that's what I have found in my own life to be really the key to really understanding Jesus, is that if I'm going to study, I'm going to do it on my knees, and I'm going to worship him. And as I do that, I come to know him, and there's a relationship there.
So it's not like studying the thing as an object, the way a Greek or Latin.
No, not at all.
But it's studying to become.
Yes.
Michael,
to revere.
To revere. Thank you, Michael. What do you make of that answer?
Oh, I think it's spot on. I just focus on that scripture from Paul as a Jewish apostle, saying that if their disobedience, Romans 11, is our opportunity as Gentiles or as Greeks to believe, even in spite of their disobedience, what will happen when they do believe, but life for the world? And I've always been intrigued by what that life for the world would mean, and that something must spark the whole focus of the world to say there's a greater level of life, because the Jewish people are now fully in communion with the body. Am I on track with that? That we're still kind of lacking that in our way of being able to discern without the Hebrew people really involved with us?
Well, what I would say is that the bottom line is that Jesus has come to show us the Father, and he has come to make disciples. And the basis of making disciples is, number one, Matthew 11:28, when Jesus says that we should become like him, and that we should imitate him. And that is the basis of discipleship. Can we imitate God? Can we do what he's doing in the world? And that's what we're called to do.
Michael, thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. There are endless dimensions in studying Scripture, wouldn't you say, Jeff?
Oh,
it's bottomless.
It's like an onion. It's like an onion. You got the different layers of peels. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gets deeper and deeper.
888-318-7884 is our number. If you prefer the spelled version, it's 888-31-TRUTH. We're talking with Jeff Cavins about the Great Adventure Bible, a beautiful work from Ascension Press, a work that has been decades in being born, and we have it here with us this year. Hope you will. Even if you just go to a good Catholic bookstore and take a look at it, I think you'll be very, very impressed. Jim in Indianapolis is next. Jim, your question for Jeff Cavins.
Hello, thanks for taking my call.
Happy to.
I was wondering if this Bible explains or interprets in a Catholic way the parables of Jesus.
Well, the Bible that we put together, we put together some incredible scholars. Dr. Mary Healy, and she has a great article on doing Lectio Divina. We have Dr. Peter Williamson, who talks about how to interpret Scripture. We have also Dr. Andrew Swafford. In terms of what you're talking about, that's not the purpose of the Bible. What we want to do in this Bible is show people how to read it. In other words, how to understand the basic story from Genesis to Revelation. And here's the big problem, and this is one of the things that we're facing, is that the basic revelation of God from a Catholic perspective is from Scripture. But how many people, and I've done this in many conferences around the country, how many people have ever had anybody show them or instruct them on how to read the Bible so it makes sense? And the answer is very few, very few. So the purpose of this Bible is not to get into the nitty-gritty, but it is to show people how to read it so they can get the basic story. And we put forth some of the best scholars in the world today that will help you do that.
Okay, Jim?
Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jeff Cavins is our guest. The new Bible that's now, you said at the break, is in its third printing already?
Yeah, we're kind of shocked, to be honest with you. We put out about 30,000 at the beginning, and they called me and said they're sold out. And I said, "What?" And yeah, they're all sold out. We've never seen anything like it. And they put out the second printing, and those are sold out. And the third printing is selling out right now. So we're a little bit shocked.
So
but
you're going to be,
you're going to have hungry for God's word.
That's the thing, is that you're going to have more than 100,000 of these in people's hands within just a few months of publishing.
We have that already. Yeah, we have that already. And you know what? People are hungry. They're hungry to know God's word, and such a time as this.
Yeah, and you've taken so many of the obstacles out of it. I mean, so many of and Mary Healy. We just love Mary Healy around here. She's just such a great scholar.
Sweet. Yeah, what a wonderful girl.
And she wrote
wonderful lady.
Yeah, she wrote the book on the Gospel of Mark. I mean, the go-to book on the Gospel of Mark. And so that's a great Bible scholar you have there, and the other scholars that you have. But the thing is, the big barrier is we're not taught the Bible in school. We don't, as generation after generation was, and it's not a thing where a modern person could just pick it up and go, "Oh, I get it. Here, I'll just follow along."
No way.
You need help, and I find the fact that it's sold out and then sold out again, and then in third printing about to be sold out again. And God bless you to go into a fourth, fifth, sixth printing. We hear so many negative things, Jeff, about the state of the Catholic Church, many of which are very true without denying any of it. But under the radar, there is this hunger for the truth, a hunger to get, like you said, God's word, and to know what it is, and to have someone help me to know what it is so I can live it.
You're exactly right. When you turn the TV on, there's so many people that are looking to Dr. Phil, Oprah, Ellen, or whatever it is, for direction in their life. And all that time, God is giving you his plan. And paragraph 236 of the Catechism really brings it out well when it says that there's two things that you need to know. Number one, you need to know the heart of your Father, the theology. You need to know that God loves you. He's faithful. And number two, he has a plan, the economy. And if you can understand his heart and you can understand his plan, then you have a platform for trusting him in daily life. And that is what I would argue is what people are looking for. They're looking for some kind of platform in which they can build their life. And people are lost. And if we can give them this, then they can live that life and they can be successful.
We're talking about how to study the Bible today with Jeff Cavins. As I've said before, the man who has dedicated decades of his life to helping other people study the Bible, to crack it open, to understand where you are and what's happening when you're in these various books of the Bible. 888-318-7884 is the number to call and talk with Jeff about how to study the Bible. 888-318-7884. Let us go now to Carol in Oklahoma, listening on 97.3 Catholic Radio. So happy to have you with us, Carol. Your question for Jeff.
Oh, I'm delighted. I'm not even going to ask a question because we have been studying The Great Adventure plus everything else he's put out for years, and we're committed and getting closer to the Lord. And we keep telling our pastor this is the best thing out there.
Oh, thank you for that.
Say thanks, Jeff. I've watched you grow old on your tape.
Are you old now, Jeff? I didn't know.
I didn't even know that. That's news. You might want to email my wife.
I'm fairly certain your wife is aware of the condition you have fallen into, Jeff. Carol, what a nice thing! What a nice thing! How did you get in contact? I mean, was it through your parish? What put you in contact with the Great Adventure Bible series?
Barron's Catholicism. And then we came across the Great Adventure, and actually what our group started with was the 8-week, and we loved it so much that we went to the 24-week, and then we've done the 24-week twice, and then we've done all of the other writings that you've done, Jeff, with Matthew and the Acts and Revelation, all that stuff.
So
we're hungry for it. It's
amen,
amazing.
sister. Carol, when you say we've done it, who's the we?
We is a group of about 14 to 16 people at St. Andrew's Parish in Moore. And there are several groups like us that have done that here in our own church.
Well, it's thousands now, isn't it, Jeff? Thousands of groups have used the Great Adventure Bible series?
Yeah, we're right now about 1.6 million Catholics have gone through the Great Adventure. So it's pretty big.
I take great hope from that myself. Carol, thank you for that call. If you got a hunger for all kinds of good Catholic stuff, they keep each day. They hand me a sheet of paper and they say, "This is the sale today," because I guess lots of people are getting ready for Christmas. So we've got a really a very special limited time offer beginning today from now until Sunday at midnight. Promo code CALive18 will save you, 35% on hundreds of items in our online shop. Plus you get $5 flat rate shipping if you're in the continental U.S. Sorry, Alaska. Sorry, Hawaii. But everybody else, 35% off. Well, everybody gets 35% off. And if you're in the continental U.S., $5 flat rate shipping on everything. Just go to shop.catholic.com and use the promo code CALive18 until Sunday midnight, and you will get all that savings.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
You know what Catholic radio is? It's training for the troops. It's a interaural of the ear boot camp. The folks who listen, who grow in their faith, grow in charity, grow in all the virtues, they then go out and exert an influence far beyond just themselves. Catholic radio has an exponential effect for bringing people deeper into the faith.
Dr. Ray Guarendi thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
St. Paul's street evangelization isn't like other evangelism you might have seen on the streets. We don't yell, and we don't force anyone to pay attention to us. Instead, St. Paul's street evangelization is committed to presenting a positive, passionately Catholic presence to a world hungry for truth. For more information, or to start a chapter of your own, go to www.streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com. It's time to do our part.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. How do you study the Bible? If you got questions about how, in fact, to study the Bible, give us a call, 888-318-7884. I'm going to play a little bit of telephone roulette now. Hello, you are on Catholic Answers Live. Your name, please. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, you have a question for Jeff Cavins?
Oh, yeah. I thought I was going to see the screener first.
No, we decided to just go straight to, we're just burning through them today. So, yeah, your name, please?
Okay, cool. Matthew.
Okay, Matthew, your question for Jeff.
I was raised Baptist, and I was just wondering if I converted to Catholicism just a few years ago. I was wondering if the Great Adventure Bible writes things in more of a context with the church teachings and church history, as more of the authoritative voice on some of the passages of the Bible.
Sure. Well, the Great Adventure Bible, number one, is that there are 73 books in the Great Adventure Bible versus a Protestant Bible, which is 66. And what we did in that Bible is we gave you literally the key to reading those 73 books as a story by dividing the Bible into 12 periods, and we have really beautiful, colorful, annotated, sections of the Bible for those 12 periods. And then we show you the 14 books out of the 73, 14 books that tell the story. And that's really all we're doing in this Bible is we're saying, hey, do you want to know the story? Do you want to know salvation history? We're going to teach it to you. And that's what we do there. And then we have a few articles from Dr. Mary Healy, Dr. Peter Williamson, Dr. Andrew Swafford that really bring you deep into the traditional way of interpreting Scripture. And so that's what makes us different.
So, okay, Matthew, you were wondering if it and I get the question, but it's kind of is it from a Catholic perspective? And
yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right, and it's from the perspective of helping you find where you are. Is that right, Jeff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's two different ways to look at the Bible. One is 66 books. One is 73. And the Great Adventure Bible shows you how to read through all 73 books of the Bible, and it literally gives you the story of salvation history. And that's what we think we have an advantage of, and that God wants you to know His story, and we're showing that to you.
Matthew, thanks so much, and so happy to have you, a full member of the Catholic Church. Happy to be your brother in Christ, Matthew. Thanks for the call.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the thing I'm thinking about when you're answering Matthew's question is there's a lot of books in the Bible that are not history books. Like, what do you do with like, how do you deal with Psalms or the Song of Songs or Wisdom or something like that?
No, great point. When most people start to read the Bible, they're going to start in Genesis, and they're going to go all the way to Revelation. And usually they'll say, well, I'm going to do this in January. I'm going to read the Bible. And right around March, they quit because they're in Leviticus. They don't know what's going on anymore. No. So what we show them is how to read it, from Genesis all the way to Revelation. And as you read through salvation history, there are a number of books that are not included in a Protestant Bible, but we show you where they belong in salvation history. And suddenly they make incredible sense as you read them this way.
Like the Maccabees, for example.
Oh, absolutely. Sirach, Maccabees.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They make complete sense. In fact, what's funny is that for years as a Protestant pastor, I used to come to the period of the Maccabees, and we called it 400 silent years. In other words, nothing's happening. But when I became Catholic, all of a sudden, something's happening, and we had something to tell people that God was continuing to speak in that period.
But how does this, like giving the historical kind of, letting me know where I am and what's happening, and that this is in fact a story of God's fatherly love for me, like how does that help me when I get to, for example, the wisdom literature, to know what to make of it?
Well, what we do in the Great Adventure Bible is we show people, number one, 12 periods, and they're color-coded. So we literally instruct people on how to go through those 12 periods, and they're color-coded. And then from those 12 periods, there are 14 narrative books out of the 73 books in the Catholic Bible. And if we can focus on those narrative books, on those 14 narrative books, we can keep people on the story. And if we can go through those 12 periods, those 14 books, in chronological order, they're going to get the story, and then we can show them where the other 59 books fit in their proper place. And for the first time, people are saying, I get it. I finally get it. I get how this whole story fits together.
Yeah, and then when you do begin to get it, how the whole story fits together, then the person of Jesus comes alive in a totally revolutionary way.
Absolutely, and that's the goal. That's the goal.
Let's go to George in Florida. I think we can get your question in, George. Happy to have you. George, your question for Jeff Cavins.
Hi there. Good evening. Thanks for taking the time this night. The question that I have, just to jump right into it, is I've got two teenagers that, they're going through high school dealing with teenager things. But I'm looking for some advice regarding maybe some study programs. The previous caller mentioned, or a few callers ago mentioned, some things that are available at the parish. But I'm looking for something that would be guided towards teenagers that, it's hard having that conversation, right? They just want to, go deal with other things and things that interest them. Is there something that you all can recommend that we could take advantage of?
No, good question. Number one, that teenagers are not interested in theology. And we got to be honest about that. They're just not interested in theology. What they're interested in is an adventure. They're interested in the story. And if we can introduce Christ to them in the big picture of a story, an adventure that's bigger than life, that's typically what they respond to, is that Christ is asking you to come on an adventure that is bigger than anything that you've ever imagined in your life. And that's what they respond to. They don't typically, respond to theology and different doctrines and so forth, because they don't have a story. In other words, if I were to say to your kids, are you interested in ruby slippers? Are you interested in witches that in another world? Are you interested in lions and all that? They'd say no. But if I could introduce the Wizard of Oz to them, suddenly they would be interested in that, because there's a story in the background. And I think that's one of the problems that we're facing today, is that we're trying to give the particulars to kids without a story, as far as the background.
Does that help you, George?
That does. Thank you so much. In any particular maybe study programs or anything available that would do such a thing, or present our faith in that light?
Well, sure. I mean, number one, we've got the Great Adventure Bible Study that will relate to adults and high school students. But my wife, along with 3 other educators, has put together the Bible study and the plan of salvation for teens and people who are in first through sixth, and that's very, very powerful.
Thank you so much.
George, thank you very, very much for that call. I was going to give out the number again, but I think we won't encourage more calls when there's only a couple minutes left. Jeff, I imagine, you told that idea of there are lots of folks who make that New Year's commitment. I'm going to read the Bible this year, and they start on January 1st. Yep. The impression I get is that your hope is they'll get this Bible and they'll make it through the year. They'll get to the book of Revelation.
Well, sure. I mean, that's the way we set it up. But the truth is, you can use any Bible, and you can take any Catholic Bible, whether it's the New American Bible or the Bible that the Catechism uses, and you can do that, and you can read it, through, and get a hold of the entire story, and you're going to do really well.
Jeff, thanks very, very much. It's been a great pleasure talking with you about the Bible. I want to let people know again where they can get it. Where do you recommend? Is it at the Ascension Press website or?
Oh, yeah.
Go to the website.
Yeah, go to ascensionpress.com and just Google it, and you'll find your landing place.
And is there going to be a wait to get it? Do you know? Do you know what the situation is right now? Do you just have to kind of put your name in the hat?
Good question. No, I think they've got about several thousand that are available right now.
Okay.
And yeah, they're just selling out.
Yeah, because thanks. You just did my Christmas shopping for me. Then I just figured out what I'm going to give my wife. Because I think my wife is a convert to the Catholic faith, and not from Christianity. She was raised in a non-religious home. And wow. I think this is exciting to me that I could give this to her, and I really think that she would enjoy the Bible in a way that otherwise maybe it's harder to enjoy.
It's an exciting time.
Jeff Cavins gave us a lot of reason to hope. Thanks for the hour of the Great Adventure Bible, the Great Adventure Bible series. You can find it all just by putting that into the Googles. And tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum. Any question you've got on the Catholic faith is welcome. Thanks, Nick, doing the audio. Thanks, assistant producer Marie, doing assistant producering. Oh, why do you give me that look? Thank you very much, Brandon, for the video. And Darren, of course, for running the whole thing. Another killer Wednesday, Darren. Nice job. See you tomorrow, God willing, on Catholic Answers Live.